Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
An effort is underway to keep a sitting congressional representative from running for re-election.
They don't want voters to even have the option to re-elect Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. A group in Georgia says she helped facilitate the U.S. Capitol riot that disrupted Congress from certifying President Joe Biden's election victory. The challenge was filed Thursday with the Georgia Secretary of State's office and is being brought by a group of registered voters in Greene's congressional district. The complaint claims she is ineligible under the 14th Amendment. Greene has forcefully rejected the challenge in an email statement and says she opposes all forms of political violence. Tom Graham, Fox News.
The Biden administration has told Dr. Mehmet Oz and Herschel Walker, a doctor and an athlete, to resign from the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Both were appointed by President Trump. Both are Republicans running for the Senate. Dr. Oz telling Fox's Hannity it's purely political.
When we're senators, and we will both be senators one day, I believe, we're going to investigate politically motivated firings. We want to introduce legislation to block politically driven malice. I mean, it makes no legal sense that you would take us off the panel. They're making up excuses like the Hatch Act, but we are both unpaid volunteers.
Both men say they'll force the administration to fire them. State lawmakers in Utah will try Friday to override the governor's veto of legislation that would ban transgender athletes from playing on women's sports teams in the state. A second insider who's already pled guilty in a plot to kidnap Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer says the group was prepared to use a grenade launcher and a machine gun to fight security officers at the governor's vacation home. Caleb Franks told a jury a leader in that group believed that Governor Whitmer's COVID-19 restrictions were tyrannical and that the U.S. Constitution gave the men the right to strike back against her. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, here we are, the toughest day of the week for Jose and I. Last day of Tall Tales this week. 2 days of purgatory or limbo or some other nondescript place, completely separated from tall tales and tailgaters. It's tough, but Jose and I somehow manage to struggle through it every week. But let's enjoy the 2 hours that we got today. Another fine day for Tall Tales. Let's start right out with Zemi Ikotny. Here we go. Our View. This is the Daily News. Our View. Support Guam's women-driven businesses. This has now become extremely difficult because in order to support women-driven businesses, first of all, you got to know what a woman is. And it's strange, but, you know, I thought that there were a few things in life that I was pretty sure of in my going into my 90th year here. You know, I thought I pretty well knew exactly what a woman was. In fact, I spent some time chasing them till one of them finally caught me. A man chases a girl until she catches him, right, Jose?
You have the longest legs, and the one with the shortest ones caught you.
Exactly. But you know why tall guys oftentimes marry short girls?
Why is that?
Tall guys get first choice.
It's true.
Yeah, okay. So I used to be really, really sure of that, but in this year of DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Did you just say die?
I did, yeah, and it's purposeful. In these days of diversity, inclusion, and equity, wokeism, neo-Marxism, cultural Marxism, etc., I'm not so sure of anything anymore. I have a candle that I when I'm out on my front porch, I light this candle, especially when sunrise is late, and I'm out there, and it's one of those candles that keeps the bugs away. And I keep thinking that the flame of the candle is going down, kind of like something is gaslighting me. But then I figure out what it is. I'm reading stuff off my iPad, and it's all this stuff that I'm reading, you know. So I'm not so sure I know what a woman is anymore. And if I don't know, can you possibly fault me? I'm a lawyer and everything, but I'm not a nominee to the United States Supreme Court. And if you can't expect a nominee to the United States Supreme Court, someone who currently sits on the second most important court in the country, the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, then how can you expect a lowly talk show host to be able to divine such things? So, Daily News, I think you're barking up the wrong tree here. Probably a lot of people out there in our international radio listening audience would like to support women-driven businesses, but there's a definitional problem here. Here's how the editorial goes. Guam's women entrepreneurs have been a significant force of the local economy for decades. Not only have they carried out their roles as super moms and nurturing grandmothers day in, day. Can you say that nowadays, Jose? Super moms and nurturing grandmothers?
That sounds colonialistic.
It does indeed. I mean, unless you're talking about super dads and nurturing grandfathers, it's just not fair. They've helped take our business sector to the next level with savvy business sense, management skills, and task list execution. In short, Guam's women have not only proven they can take it to the next level, they're demonstrating it every day as publishers and media executives, getting important news out to our people. Boy, I haven't noticed that one. As presidents of institutions of higher education, as senators, as leaders of government agencies, and as the visionary minds behind some of Guam's newest nonprofit organizations urging us to practice more sustainable ways of living.
As NCAA swimmers.
Exactly. Yeah, Leah, what's her name?
Thomas.
Leah Thomas. Yeah, fine example of womanhood. Yeah, she's setting records all over the place. So going back to this sentence, Guam's women have not only proved they can take it to the next level, they're demonstrating it every day. I think it's time then to repeal that law that the legislature just passed, giving women a 5% set-off on government contracts. Obviously, you don't need it anymore.
Not necessary.
Yeah. Let us not forget Governor Lulian Guerrero. Boy, somehow.
Can we? Please?
Yeah, I'd really like to try, but Guam's first elected female chief executive, who, whether one supports her or not, has led us through the global pandemic and economic meltdown of Wuhan virus. Guam's women are hardworking contributors to hold top positions in major business organizations like the Chamber of Commerce and the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association, and they're medical professionals, architects, engineers, mental health counselors, and teachers who have raised and inspired the next generation of women with the confidence to step out on their own, to launch forward-thinking startups like Namalo Refillery that help reduce plastic waste, along with the future-focused women fueling the success of non-profit organizations like Guahan Sustainable Culture. Saturday, the public will have the opportunity to support and learn more about Guam's women in business at the first ever pop-up shop, an event that will showcase more than 20 women-owned businesses and the unique products and services they're bringing to the island's economic table. We encourage everyone to take time out of Saturday to check out the Guam Chamber Business Women's Network event. Head to the Chamber office in Hagatna from 10 to 2 on Saturday and bring the next generation of entrepreneurs to buy local, support local, and get inspired by the local women driving this community forward every day. Absolutely inspirational, isn't it, Jose?
Yeah, but make sure you bring your man because he has the money.
Yeah.
Was that chauvinistic?
It is indeed, yeah, it is indeed.
I just thought we mentioned a male this whole entire editorial.
Well, just leave that part out of it. You know, we really don't need males. I'm thinking about starting my own group. You know, and we would have a very selective membership, and the only requisite of this group that I'm starting is that if you are a member, you must act like a male. And the name of the group is going to be called Men. Yeah. You want to join?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Rule number 1 about the men is you must talk about the men.
Okay.
Just the opposite of Fight Club, right? All right, let's take a peek at the card today. Of course, we start out with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. Then we've got Major League Baseball versus baseball. Anthony Chotgoloff versus Tony Sanchez. Bavacqua versus the CNMI. And we get into some really juicy stuff. Carl versus the Guam Visitors Bureau. Democrats versus Ted Cruz. And this gets us into Katanji, critical race theory, women, all of those things. I mean, you could write, Katanji has just finished her hearings. You could already write a book about her. And she hasn't even thought about hearing a case on the Supreme Court. Talk about a legacy. Then we've got the CCU versus the PUC, Friedman versus insurance companies, Andrew Santos versus Guam Waterworks. This is really interesting. I've got some really interesting biographical experience to read into this one when we get to it. Now, we may not get to it today, but Troy has done, once again, a really excellent job of laying it out. And it's not perishable. It'll keep. If we don't get to it till Monday, it'll still be relevant on Monday. Okay, so starting out the card, but what have I got? Mrs. Cruz on the phone here before I even get into the card? Let's just give it a second here to see who wants to get on the air and talk to our international radio listening audience. In the meantime, I will once again show you the systemic racism picture. Here it is. And everybody knows that what they're looking at here, if I asked you what color is the stuff in the dish, you'd tell me orange. If I said, what is it, you'd tell me it's red rice. We all know that the narrative calls for demands that it be referred to as red rice, even though the color of it is actually orange. So let's see who I've got here. I've got Joanne, Customs and Airlines. Okay, well, it's not on the card, but Joanne apparently was listening and knows how to get on the air without talking about something on the card. So go ahead, Joanne, you got it.
Hi, Bob. So the Customs Director, Pareto, is saying that he can't bring dogs in because United won't ship them in. But it's a federal program. He can use
let me stop.
The Army, the Navy.
Let me stop you here for just a second, Joanne. So this is, when it comes to dogs, this is not something that United did. It's something the United didn't do, correct?
No, correct. But so it seems, right?
Yeah.
I don't have any proof. But there aren't any cookhouses on Guam where they're making crystal meth. So it's all imported.
Okay.
And the only way to stop it is through customs. And then the Customs Director, Pareto, is saying that, the dogs are getting old, they're retiring, then you bring in new dogs, and United won't ship them in, so he doesn't know what to do. But I just want to tell all of Guam that he has other options. It's a federal program, and he can use the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Army to bring them in. So there's no reason we shouldn't have drug dogs here. And I just want to call him out on that.
Okay, well, let me just add something to your thought process here, Joanne. We have government agencies, and we have different levels of employees. And the average employee in the government agency has some pretty strict instructions as to what he's to do, what he's not to do, has a fair amount of supervision, et cetera. And that applies to everybody but the director, who is not a classified employee. He's appointed by the governor. And if you are a director, one of your jobs, in some respects maybe the most important part of your job, is to solve problems. So when you run into something that keeps you from doing your mission, it's not good enough just to say, well, the reason I can't do my mission is because here's a problem. Where's the wash basin? I got to wash my hands here. Because the director of an agency, if he runs into a roadblock, is supposed to figure out some way to solve the problem. Just like you're saying, if United won't bring the dogs in, then let's get a hold of the Air Force. They got lots of planes. Let's get a hold of the Navy. They got lots of ships, right?
Yep.
So until he does that, he's not doing his job.
Exactly, and that's why I'm calling him out. And that's why I'm calling you to call him out.
Okay. Ike Pareda, time to go to work.
Yeah.
We don't need to pay somebody over $100,000 in salary to come up with excuses.
Exactly.
You could go out and shave a monkey and teach them how to do that. Parrots could be taught how to do that. When you're making the big bucks like that, your job is to solve the problems, not to use the problem
An excuse.
as an excuse for performance, right, Joanne?
Exactly. And that's why I just want all of Guam to know that we have an option. And for it to be in the newspaper that, United won't fly dogs and he's asking United, you don't need United.
You got it, Joanne. Well, you've communicated that message with our entire international radio listening audience. So Thanks a lot for calling Tall Tales. Nice talking to you, Joanne.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You said there's a monkey for hire for a 3-figure salary?
Yeah, I mean, you could teach a parrot how to say, there's a problem. Polly want a cracker? There's a problem. There's a problem. Yeah, that's not what the directors get paid for.
But I can identify as a parrot, too. So I'm just looking for something I can identify. Even though I'm not trained as one,
You could do it.
I
huh?
can do it.
All right.
Just putting it out there.
All right. Okay, first item on the card is Major League Baseball. We've got this pitcher named Shohei Ohtani, who plays for the Angels. I guess that's Los Angeles, right? Yeah, I'm still stuck with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Are they Anaheim now, or is it Los? It's probably the same thing.
Yeah, I guess they did move to Anaheim. They wanted to be closer to Disneyland. And this guy Ohtani is a good hitter. In fact, he even plays in the outfield sometimes, so that they can use his bat. And this is the American League. The American League really screwed baseball up. It must have been 40 years ago when they came up with this idiotic designated hitter rule. Now, baseball is not like, obviously it's not like football and basketball. Baseball doesn't require a high degree of athleticism, the ability to run really fast or jump really high. You can be a good baseball player and not run really fast or jump really high. There's some really finely defined skills, like hitting a ball traveling towards you at 100 miles an hour with a piece of wood that's only slightly larger in diameter than the ball. That doesn't require athleticism. That's a particular skill unto its own. Throwing that ball is the same thing. So baseball historically was a game of strategy. And the most important player in baseball is the pitcher. Good pitchers can win games even if some of the other folks on his team aren't really that hot. But ordinarily, pitchers are chosen for their ability to throw the ball, not to hit it. So it's not very ordinary to find a pitcher that can hit. So there are times later on in the game when it's the pitcher's turn to bat, but the chances of winning would be much greater if someone would hit the ball. Maybe there are men on base, and the pitcher is not a very good pitcher. 2 outs already. The pitcher goes up and strikes out. A chance to win the game is gone. So the manager has this dilemma. He can take the pitcher out of the game and send a pinch hitter in, somebody else in just to hit, and then send another pitch and send somebody in for the pinch hitter to be the new pitcher. If the pitcher is really good and throwing a good game, this becomes an even harder decision. But this is the kind of decisions that, it's like directors of agencies, it's these kinds of problems that managers draw the big bucks for solving. Another dimension to it is this, that a right-handed pitcher has a better chance of striking out a right-handed batter. So if you got a right-handed pitcher and the next batter is also a right-handed batter, sometimes managers send in a left-handed pinch hitter because he'll have a better chance of hitting the ball. So if the manager makes a good call, it can really, really help. If he makes a bad call, the pinch hitter strikes out and he has to send in a pitcher that's not as good as the one that he took out. That's baseball. That's what baseball is all about. And I'm oversimplifying it. So what did the stupid American League do? They said, well, you can have a designated hitter. So when it's time for the pitcher to hit, just send your designated hitter to the plate. He can bat, and then the pitcher can go back out to the mound. You can do this twice during a baseball game.
And it's only in the American League,
only
not the National League.
Yeah, only the American League, yeah. And it just has ruined baseball as far as I'm concerned. It's just a horrible rule. Taking all the strategy out of baseball. And that wasn't good enough for them. This guy Ohtani comes along, who is a good pitcher and a good hitter. So they've come up with a special rule for him. And that is that, let's see, under the Ohtani rule, Ohtani can pinch hit even if he's not pitching, and then he can still go out and pitch later on. So let's say seventh inning, Ohtani is called in as a pincher, called in off the bench. He pinch hits, does fairly well, and the other pitcher goes back on the mound. He's very wild, so they bring Ohtani in to pitch. So you could use him twice. Yeah, it's really a travesty as to what they've done to baseball. I used to be a baseball fan, but not anymore. They've just ruined the game as far as I'm concerned. Okay, next item on the card is Anthony Chargaloff versus Tony Sanchez. And this is an article that ran in the Post. Hard work and aggressive push to promote the beauty of the South and its role in tourism have paid off. Anilahan Mayor Anthony Chargaloff said Tuesday after receiving a $95,000 grant from the Visitors Bureau. Chargaloff said, Anilahan will use the grant money to buy, install, and maintain a digital billboard in front of the Malolo transfer station, which I think is a horrible decision. A really bad decision.
Is that for the pigs?
I guess. Yeah, it's one of these electronic billboards, which I don't even like to see in a baseball park, going back to baseball. It's like the one down at the intersection of the ITC and Hospital Road. That's the last thing you need in Anilahan. If Anilahan wants to capitalize on something, it ought to capitalize on its non-urban atmosphere. It shouldn't try to be like a suburb of Hollywood.
You could really see the night sky because of the low lights.
Yeah.
Probably not anymore.
Probably not. Not after they install this thing. Yeah. Anyhow, that's a bad call, I think, on Chargaloff's part, but let's go on to the good part. We are proud of the work Mayor Chargaloff and his team to polish up Enron and really make this southern gem shine, Gutierrez said in a statement. Our grant for their village digital sign project will go a long way to keeping tourism alive and help to bring back the purpose of tourism. It added value for southern tourists, etc. And then Chargaloff says, our office and the residents have been keeping Anilahan clean, keeping vegetation at bay, making even the rocks colorful or interesting to look at. Yeah, so the picture that comes with his article is people out painting some large boulders at the entrance to the village. So, and I've remarked on this myself. I was down there maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, and I was amazed at how nice Anilahan looks. The shoulders are all mowed. The power pole, utility poles are painted. It's just neat as a pin everywhere you go. And that's why I put this on the card as Chargaloff versus Sanchez. The mayor of Jigo, Tony Sanchez, has just let the highway, Marine Corps Drive in Jigo, turn into just a horrible sight. You know, I'm kind of ashamed to tell people that I live in Jigo because it's such a mess. And our mayor does almost nothing to keep it clean. Now, after this article appeared, I saw some people out on the road actually hacking the boonies. So they're actually hacking the boonies along Marine Corps Drive, starting out at the intersection, the Simon Sanchez intersection, or actually the Paris Acres intersection, and working south. So I got a couple of comments on that. It's about time. You don't have to wait until the weeds and the Tongan is over your head. You should be out there doing it periodically, every week or 10 days. But because they let it go so long, the part that they've actually trimmed looks like a battle scene from the Ukraine. These dried out stems, and it just looks awful. It looks just as bad as it did when it was growing, but in a different way. So hats off to Interahan. And do we have a boo sound effect on there, Jose? Let's give Tony Sanchez the cheer he really deserves. Boo! Yeah, very good, Tony Sanchez. Next item on the card. Well, let's take a short break here.
Topeka's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, back on Tall Tales here. Back to baseball for a minute. Chris Biolacino says outfielders need to be fast and jump high. Well, yeah, but how about catchers? So my point is that you can be a baseball player without having a high degree of athleticism. Maybe you can't play every single position, but it's not like basketball or football. You're not going to be good in basketball or football unless you have a high degree of athleticism. Okay, let's go on to Bavacqua versus the CNMI. And this is Bavacqua's weekly column. You know, if Bavacqua can't find something bad to say about the island and where we're going in order to support his separatist movement, I don't know what he'd write about. When the transfer of U.S. Marines to Guam from Okinawa was first announced in 2005, the majority of the people on the island responded positively to this news. When the buildup first appeared in headlines or as a topic of conversation, most were supportive. Supporting the buildup was a way of showing patriotism to the U.S. and repaying a perceived debt from being liberated from the Japanese in 1944. Also, it kind of looked like money coming to the island.
That's what I remember.
Yeah. It would clearly mean more money to come into the island and more people to shop in stores and eat in restaurants. The buildup was compared to a golden ticket. That's interesting. I learn all kinds of things about things that never happened by reading his column. And if Guam went along and supported the buildup, it would be able to ride the build-up train to economic boomtown. But as more and more details released and the buildup became something in the world as opposed to just existing in the imaginations locally, it became less exciting and potentially problematic. This became apparent when the Department of Defense released their Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or DEIS, on the buildup. This study, which was massive, more than 10,000 pages in total spread across multiple volumes, was meant to cover the potential negative effects to the island that the buildup could cause. It becomes hard to reconcile how something like the buildup could be fantastically positive for the island when its negative impacts require more than 9 times the number of words in a Bible to discuss. Not much of an argument. group such as We Are Guahan poured through the DEIS, and what they found was disturbing. The study found that the buildup would bring economic benefits to the island, but these benefits might not be felt by the entire island. It's just not fair. You know, how is it going to help the people of Cocos Island? The buildup would bring thousands of jobs, but few of these jobs would go to people already living on Guam. Most of the jobs would go to foreign workers, military dependents, and people moving to Guam to take advantage of the new military spending. In truth, the DEIS revealed that for the majority of people already on Guam, their lives would likely get more difficult as the buildup likely would cause significant cost of living increases, strains on social programs and infrastructure, and significant increases to the time that your average resident has to wait in traffic during their daily commute. At the center of all these issues was the fact that Guam's population, due to the buildup as initially planned, could increase rapidly and massively, with one estimate claiming that in 5 years, Guam's population could end up increasing by 60,000 people. Now remember, this is as initially planned. And as I recall, as initially planned, we were talking about 12,000 Marines. And over time, that was scaled back to 4,000 Marines. 4,000 Marines, many of whom will not be stationed here, but will be rotating through. Therefore, not as many dependents. But that's okay. 60,000 people is a really impressive number. There's no sense doing too much fact-checking when the narrative sounds so good. What was most problematic about all these issues, in my opinion, is that Guam would have been forced to shoulder a 30% increase in its population. So there you go with the 60,000, without any ability, with no ability to stop it. As though anybody in any one of the states can stop it. As a U.S. territory, the buildup was not something that Guam could say no to. Now, when it comes to saying no, a state can't say no. If the military wants to build Fort Hood in Texas, it doesn't need the governors go ahead to come in, condemn the land, they build a fort, and that's it. The only way that Guam could say no is, of course, what we always come back to. If Guam were an independent country, which, of course, is what Bevacqua, one way or another, is always leading us down that path without coming right out and saying it. He wants you to figure that out for yourself. We should have the ability to say no to that military buildup. How do we do that? Would statehood? No. How about independent? Yeah, if we were independent, we could tell them to go pack sand if we felt like it. A population of 60,000 people is not something like Texas or California might notice, but to a small island, this could be immensely destructive. Now, he threw a 60,000 number out there, which I think is highly suspect for the reasons that I mentioned. It was the initial estimate. It is coming from him, which also makes it suspect. The one reason why attempts to write constitutions in both Guam and the Virgin Islands have always struggled with the ability to control borders, including the ability to manage population influxes from the U.S. itself. Well, how do you do that? You become an independent country. It's the only way you can do it. You can't put up an immigration station on the Colorado River. California's done that, but they're just looking for fruit. I didn't say fruits, I said fruit. You can't set up an immigration checkpoint on a state border and to tell people, I'm sorry, you are not one of us. You can't come into California. You just can't do that. But if you're an independent country, yeah, you can.
Well, maybe if Jackson gets into the Supreme Court, they have an ally. She already thinks Guam is a country?
We already are. You know, as soon as she gets to write an opinion about Guam, that'll probably be the majority opinion. So So here's an article that I plucked from the Post called Northern Marianas Official Reflect on 46-Year Covenant with the U.S. The Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands observed the 46th anniversary of its covenant with the United States on Thursday. Almost 5 decades ago, said CNMI Governor Ralph Torres, President Gerald Ford signed a document that resulted in one of the most unique political relationships in modern democracy, a commonwealth and political union with the United States. Today, the governor said, we commemorate the signing of that honorable accord, which is our sacred agreement with the United States and the foundation of our government. He said the CNMI remains committed to ensuring that covenant upholds our founders' original intent, which is to promote economic self-sufficiency in the modern world, modern economy, and to raise the standard of living for people who call these islands home through protecting safety and well-being, achieving healthcare goals, expanding educational opportunities for our students, building resilient infrastructures, and revitalizing our economy. On this day, Torres added, while we reflect upon the progress that we have made as a Commonwealth, we also continue to look forward toward the future with partnership and collaboration at the heart of our work for the best interests of everyone in the Marianas. And then it talks a little bit about Torres's impeachment. CNMI Democrat gubernatorial candidate Representative Tina Sablon said it's important to take time to regularly reflect on what that relationship really means. It's about honoring both the rights and responsibilities that come with being part of the American political family. She said it's also about never taking for granted the freedoms we enjoy, the benefits we receive, and the contributions we make to the progress and security of our nation. And it means doing our part as citizens of this Commonwealth to constantly improve upon our own experiments with self-government and pass on to the next generation a democracy that's stronger and more vibrant than the one we inherited. Our covenant means all of that to us and more. The independent gubernatorial candidate, Arnold Palacios, who's the lieutenant governor, said Covenant Day is a significant day for our people and our Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a document that actually made the Northern Marianas Islands part of the American family. Certainly, this political relationship with the United States has improved the lives of the people. We are grateful to the people who negotiated a covenant for the benefit of our Commonwealth and to those who worked hard to make the aspirations of our people a reality. The island's political relationship with the United States has been and will continue to be key to the Commonwealth's success, said former Governor Benigno R. Fitial. Only in this political union with the U.S. that the Commonwealth will be successful in the economic recovery that we are now engaged in, said Fitial, who formed the Covenant Party 20 years ago. This relationship will continue to foster economic development in the Commonwealth, Fitial said. So, you remember the last time that Michael Bavacqua mentioned the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, Jose?
I can't recall.
I don't either. And a lot of times my memory fails me, but I don't think it's this time because I don't think Bavacqua has ever mentioned the Commonwealth because obviously they don't get it. They would look at this picture and they would say, the rice is orange. They're looking at the United States and the relationship that they have with the United States and saying, hey, maldik esta, gosmaldi, and they're not getting with Bavacqua, who wants to trash that relationship at every turn, paving the way for an independent Guam. So, folks like Bavacqua and others of the separatist movement, get out a copy of the covenant between the Northern Marianas and the United States. And you might actually learn something if you did that. Perish the thought.
That was a glaring omission in last week's op-ed, too, where you're talking about all the islands that want to separate themselves from the U.S.
Yeah.
as soon as the World War II was over and the trust territories are over, but nothing about CNMI.
Nothing about the CNMI, yeah. So I don't know if it's legally possible for us to knock out a covenant like the CNMI did, because those who negotiated that covenant weren't living in the CNMI. There was no CNMI. They weren't American citizens. They weren't they weren't subject to American sovereignty. So they could negotiate at arm's length with the United States.
A clean slate.
Yeah. And but there isn't anything that would stop us from negotiating many of the provisions that are in the covenant, just like the Northern Marianas did. We got to stop bitching and try to improve our lot. And if you really want independence, Michael Bavacqua, come out and say so. Come out and say, I'm for independence, and I'm not for staying with the United States. And if you're with me, let's get together and let's do something. Don't depend on what you call the colonizer's government to do your bidding for you, which is exactly what you're doing. Just like, you know, the 13 colonies were always petitioning Parliament. Parliament, English Parliament, can you send us some money to work on independence? Yeah. Okay, so much for that item on the card. Next item on the card is Carl versus GVB. Well, let's take a short break before we plunge into that.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Help support those most in need. Team 26 is a civic group of residents on a mission to help Guam's homeless. The Hands Across the Island event is Saturday, March 26th. That'll have members walking mile by mile through many villages to simulate the struggles of our homeless community. You can support them through monetary donations. Docomo Pacific subscribers text the words Team 26 to 4357 or help to make a $10 donation with each text. Other donations can be made at GuamHomelessCoalition.org. Just note Team 26. Team 26. We got your back.
Okay, so here we are heading up to the home stretch. I'm going to go to a different item on the card here. I don't know that I can finish it, but I can start it before the big halftime show starts. And this is Hope Cristobal versus the Nobel Prize. And let's talk about the Nobel Prize for a minute.
What?
Yeah. There was a gentleman named Alfred Nobel, Nobel. I think he was a Norwegian or a Dane, one of those guys, yeah. And he invented dynamite. And he made a fortune from his invention of dynamite. He just blasted away the competition, so to speak. And when he died, he created the Nobel Prize mechanism to reward people from all different kinds of enterprises and undertakings. There's a Nobel Peace Prize and a Nobel Prize for Music, and on and on and on. And there's I think it's the Norwegian Parliament that chooses or chooses nominees for the Nobel Prize. I probably should have researched before we started, but anyhow, the Nobel Prize is awarded every year, and it always gets a lot of press. And it has become sort of a fad now to nominate people for the Nobel Prize, even though you really got to do something dramatic to win the Nobel Prize, unless you're a person of color and you happen to get elected president of the United States. then just remaining upright and alternating feet is enough to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. You'll recall that Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize. Like the ink was hardly dry on his oath of office. So I've got one that I want to highlight today, and I want to set you straight right from the get-go here. When I get into this, I'm not trying to be the local equivalent of Babylon Bee. As much as I like satire and sarcasm, etc., what I'm going to tell you is actually straight. And then you'll hear the horn honk when I go into my usual self. This is an article that ran in the Post. Uniting Peoples, Generations for Peace and Justice. Hope Cristobal is Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Yeah. An educator, a senator, an activist. Hope Cristobal is best known for her hard work and passion she has for the people of Guam. Oh, I didn't notice that. Did you, Jose?
I did not.
No. Some of the people of Guam, if they're the right color. Yeah. For decades, she has been and continues to be a powerful voice. Well, that's for sure.
Loud for sure.
Yeah. Confronting the human and indigenous rights violations against the Chamorro people. She highlighted the devastating environmental racism stemming from U.S. colonialization and militarization, and the enduring disregard of Chamorro people's right to free, prior, and informed consent regarding military expansion in Guam. Yeah, and let me read that now. The United States disregarded the Chamorro people's right to free, prior, and informed consent regarding the military expansion. What is the source of that right?
What's the source of this description? Is this the reporter?
I think it's attributed to what's her name, Natividad. But anyhow, there is no right to free, prior, and informed consent regarding military expansion in Guam. Nobody has that right.
That's why I wonder, where did they get that from? Who got it? Who wrote that for them to write that in there, to publish it?
Yeah. But that's what we're commending Hope for. I suspect this is probably from her nomination papers, but it ought to say that, shouldn't it? Yeah, there is no one has a right to free, prior, and informed consent regarding the military expansion in Guam. And sad to say, the Chamorro people are not a political entity. In the United States, I pointed out yesterday when I had, was it another Joe on the line, that the Constitution doesn't make very many distinctions between citizens and persons. We're talking about firearms ID. And the rights in the Constitution and the provisions of the Constitution are almost completely assigned to persons, not to U.S. citizens. And the reason for that is that in the United States, one of the fundamental principles of the United States is individual rights. We don't honor group rights in the United States. And if you're really hung up on group rights, that you think that Chamorros as a group are entitled to rights, then maybe independence is for you, because that doesn't work very well in the United States. We're working, there's a group here that's working really hard to change that within the framework of the U.S. Constitution. Unfortunately, they've had some success. Okay, during her time at the legislature, she was involved in establishing the rules and regulations for the Chamorro Land Trust Act with the late Senator Angel Santos, creating the Commission on Decolonization and the Chamorro Registry. We know that because she tells us that every week. There are too many things happening in our region that you have to do with the work of peace. You can't help but become involved if you are a person that wants to become aware of your surroundings and your environment and your people. You can't help but be called to office or called to service. Well, the last time she was called to service, she wasn't elected, was she? I guess they just didn't know. I suppose as an indigenous person, you can't help but become involved or say something, Cristobal said. Gosh, if you are I wonder if this is genetic. Her work continues with educating the island's youth to this day. Well, we've seen her educate the youth, haven't we, Jose? Now Cristobal has been selected by the International Peace Bureau as a 2022 Nobel Peace nominee. I am deeply humbled with this prestigious nomination, she said. But all my colleagues and fellow community activists are all part of the bundle and deserve commendation, she said. That'd be Robert Underwood, Michael Bavacqua, Laura Sauter.
The crowd at BLM protests.
The IPB is dedicated to the vision of a world without war, the article says. Somehow, Hope's temperament just doesn't seem to be very well suited to that, does it? Lisa Natividad, PhD. All right, let's break for the halftime show, and I'll come back to Lisa Natividad.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Standing with Ukraine, I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. NATO ministers meeting an emergency session in Brussels yesterday, agreeing to give Ukraine more military hardware and to beef up their own defenses close to Russia. President Biden telling the allies there is strength in their unity.
Putin was banking on NATO being split. My early conversation with him in December and early January, it was clear to me he didn't think we could sustain this cohesion. NATO has never been more united than it is today.
The president also announced new sanctions against Russia and some of its oligarchs, plus $1 billion in aid to the Ukrainian refugee crisis. 1 month in, Ukrainian forces are still taking it to the Russian troops with 2 military developments.
First one happening off in the Sea of Azov. That's where the Ukrainian Navy says that they have managed to destroy a Russian ship that was docked at the port of Berdyansk. Now, while there hasn't been any independent verification of this development, videos and pictures posted on social media appear to show a massive fire followed by multiple explosions. In Kyiv, we're learning Ukrainian forces are claiming to have pushed Russian troops back in the eastern portion of the city.
Fox's Jeff Paul in Lviv. The Justice Department says 4 Russian government officials have been charged with hacking the global energy industry and thousands of computers around the world. As expected, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams has exempted pro athletes and performers from the city's coronavirus vaccine mandate, saying it's an economic issue.
Every time a championship or a game is played here at Yankee or Met Stadium, it's a boost to $11 million into our economic impact for New York City during the playoff seasons.
The mandate still applies to private sector workers and employees of the city of New York. The city's police union says that's just not fair. America is listening to Fox News.
We're already already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Help support those most in need. Team 26 is a civic group of residents on a mission to help Guam's homeless. The Hands Across the Island event is Saturday, March 26th. That'll have members walking mile by mile through many villages to simulate the struggles of our homeless community. You can support them through monetary donations. Docomo Pacific subscribers, text the words Team 26 to 4357 or help to make a $10 donation with each text. Other donations can be made at GuamHomelessCoalition.org. Just note Team 26. Team 26. We got your back.
A Nebraska congressman has been convicted of deceiving federal agents.
A federal jury in California convicting House Republican Jeff Fortenberry for lying to the FBI about an illegal campaign contribution from a foreign billionaire at a Los Angeles fundraiser in 2016. Prosecutors portrayed Fortenberry as a politician caught up in a cycle of power and money who lied to protect his sterling reputation. Fortenberry's attorney argued FBI agents set him up and suggested the notion that a congressman with $1.5 million in his war chest would risk everything for a $30,000 donation is ridiculous. The 9-term lawmaker is up for re-election in an uncompetitive district that he's easily won many times before. Convicted felons are eligible to serve in Congress, but the vast majority of them resign rather than face the possibility of expulsion. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
The Biden administration has filed a third lawsuit over voting rights in Texas, trying to undo newly drawn precincts in Galveston, claiming they would disenfranchise black and Hispanic voters. In 2020, former President Trump carried the county with 60% of the vote. An amusement ride tragedy in Florida. A 14-year-old boy has died after falling from the Orlando Freefall ride at Icon Park. It's the world's tallest slingshot ride. How it happened, not clear yet. Half of the Elite Eight is set in the NCAA basketball tournament.
Arkansas is heading back to the Elite Eight. The Razorbacks stunning the top seed overall of the men's bracket Gonzaga Thursday, 74-68 to advance to the next round, where they're going to be taking on Duke Saturday for the right to advance to the Final Four. Coach K's 100th March Madness win coming Thursday in Sweet 16 action as the Blue Devils defeat Texas Tech 78-73. The Zags not the only one seed ousted as Arizona fell to Houston 72-60, making Kansas the lone 1 seed standing. Houston will be taking on Villanova Saturday. The Wildcats ending Michigan's Cinderella run 63-55 to reach their third Elite Eight in 7 years. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
What did the grilled cheese sandwich say to their date?
What'd they say?
You make me melt.
Oh, so cheesy.
But not as cheesy as Subway's latest Eat Fresh Refresh menu innovation. The new Fresh Melts with 3 times the cheese. Fresh Melts are the cheese lover's holy grail. Fresh Melts combine freshly baked breads and your favorite meats topped with a triple load of cheese. All grilled to warm, toasty perfection. Try the ham and cheese melt, tuna melt, or steak and cheese melt to start. Best of all, you can make any footlong into a fresh melt. At Subway, eat fresh.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title. And in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
So here we are, another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. It just doesn't get any better than that. Before the halftime break, we were talking about Hope Cristobal, and I could probably spend 3 or 4 shows, 2 hours each, talking about nothing but Hope Cristobal. Or on the other hand, I could play Hope Cristobal's screen test, and in about 5 minutes, you'd know everything you ever needed to know about Hope Cristobal, but didn't know where to look. So she's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And she was nominated by Lisa Natividad, PhD. And of course, you know, I've heard Lisa's name before. I knew she was at the university, but I didn't know doing what. But it fits in. Lisa Natividad, PhD, professor of social work. Now, oftentimes they leave the middle word out of that one, social justice work, social justice warrior work. And she's the co-founder of the Guahan Coalition for Peace and Justice. And she said she is on the council of the IBP and was contacted by a board member about their nomination ideas for this year. They said it's time for Guam, and Guam needs a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize, Natividad said. I said, hands down, the perfect person for that is Auntie Hope. What other name could, when you're talking about peace and justice and tranquility,
Auntie.
What other name could come to your mind but Auntie Hope? The general consensus is that nobody deserves it more than her. The general consensus. The reason we decided she should be the nominee is because of her outstanding work, not just in the past month or year, but her whole life has been a testament to social justice work. I didn't make this up. This is not Babylon Bee. This is not something, you know, the other day I sat down and wrote some limericks. The creative urge didn't come over me and caused me to write this up. This is something I actually ran in the Post. Cristobal, along with representatives of the Hibakusha from Japan and Korea, are among the nominations being highlighted in the Pacific region. Do you think they have Korean and Japanese equivalents of Hope Cristobal? Gosh, I hope not for their sake. Both will be featured during an international webinar on Saturday to celebrate their decades of hard work and commitment to a more peaceful world. Yeah.
Just as long as you're not Paul Zerdin.
Hello, is this Lisa Natividad? Yeah. Bob Klitzkie here, Tall Tales. I understand you're going to have this webinar about Hope Cristobal on Saturday. I've got a dynamite video that I'd like to send to you that you could put on that video. How do I get it to you? She hung up. Yeah. All right. So that's our hope.
It's your hope?
Yeah. When there's life, there's hope, right? Yeah, the worst thing that could happen to, I was going to say the worst thing that could happen to us would be to be hopeless, but I got to think about that one. The winner of the Nobel Prize is expected to be announced at the end of the summer. This is not just for me. This is about our Pacific region. This is about uniting ourselves as Pacific indigenous people, Cristobal said. The point is you need to keep the discussions alive. Well, she certainly does that. Nobody falls asleep during her discussions. Stay on top of it and be consistent in your stance. She's that. It's continual work, and we always need to be united and organized. To Guam's younger generation, she said it's important to always know where we are. We need to value who we are, and we need to value who we can be in the future through our work and hopefully the work that we do for peace and justice. I think she got some help from Kamala Harris on that sentence.
She's got my vote for the National Platitude Award.
Cristobal was born on December 14, 1946, 2 years after the end of World War II, to Francisca Timanglo Navarro Alvarez and Arsenio Frederick Alvarez, according to the letter of nomination. Arsenio Frederick Alvarez was
that indigenous?
Was he an indigenous person?
Interesting.
Yeah. The foundation of Hope Cristobal's strength as a Chamorro woman originates from two significant women, her mother, Francisca, and her godmother, Mariquita Quitagua Flores. Hope Cristobal has said that these two women embodied Chamorro identity and nurtured and enculturated her in Chamorro values and practices to become the woman she is today. Like respeto para todo, that was one of them. Stating their alternating role as figureheads in my life was seamless. They were figureheads in her life. They really didn't stand for anything. They were just figureheads. They ensured that I was in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, the letter states. Just as she was mentored, she too has taught, guided, and worked alongside multiple generations of activists, educators, and community organizers, the letter notes. It adds, although her days as a member of the Guam legislature have been long past and apparently aren't ever going to come again, given her last performance, she remains a dynamic force, richly interwoven in Guam society by promoting a peaceful, just, and sustainable future for Guam. Man, if that's her idea of, if she has shown us an example of her idea of peace, I'll take war anytime. So I'm not going to play it again. I'll play it on Monday. Make sure you tune in on Monday right after the big halftime show when I'll refresh your recollection on hope of the Nobel Prize. And I will once again play the screen test. But I can tell you some of the key words in the screen test. And you'll recall that it took place at a rally down in Petey, a Black Lives Matter rally. And Hope was there. And one of our friends, Paul Zerzan, happened to stumble in and served as her whipping boy as she took out all of her frustrations against colonizers and systemic racism and indigestible foods and stray dogs and you name it, all on Paul Zerzan. And here's what she said to Paul Zerzan. You would have expected something like, half a day? Oh, no. Guajo si Hope Cristobal Hadzena Anmo, sir? That would be...
That display of Chamorro values.
Yeah, yeah. But that's not what she said. Here's how she started it out. Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. Now, you think that's a little extreme. She's just getting warmed up. That's who you are. Colonizer. Colonization. Same thing as small murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off our island. The foundation of Hope's strength as a Chamorro woman originates from two significant women who enculturated her in Chamorro values and practices to become the woman she is today. You know, the old thing about not nice to speak ill of the dead, I wouldn't do that. But if these two women know what has befallen of their daughter and their godchild, how can they be very happy with a performance like that? Colonizer, you're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonizer, colonization, Same thing as small murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off our island. That's Hope. And then her nephew is in the background, and he's telling her that he needs to leave. Sir, you need to go. You can't come over here and tell people how to protest. You need to go. You can't tell people what to protest for and what to advocate for. Telling white man, she has a right to be here. So this is Hope. Let's see what the part about the youth. Just as she was mentored, she too has taught, guided, and worked alongside multiple generations of activists, educators, and community organizers, etc. It's like she mentored her nephew here. Then she goes on to say, yeah, I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Nice talk. Yeah. So I can, let's fast forward here. Let's say that by some strange stroke of fortune, Hope is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Can you imagine what her acceptance speech will sound like? You're nothing but white colonizers. And then Hope switches to Chamorro just to make sure she's understood. Tai mamatlo how. Now, tai mamatlo means, tai means without, mamatlo means shame, how means you. So if you say someone is a tai mamatlo how, that means you are without shame, right? Nice talk coming from her. Obviously, to perform like this to a total stranger in a public place on camera doesn't show that she has much of a sense of mamatlo herself. And she goes on to say, Sigi Huzen, Itano, get out of here. Leave this land, right? And then she goes on, Ti Tautano how. You're not a person of the land. And then she really trumps him by saying, Guahu Guini Tautano. I am. Guahareson hu gugi guini. Guahareson hu guigi guini. In other words, there's a reason for me to be here. Yeah. Comedy relief, I think. We've gotten a lot of chuckles out of Hope's performance. She says, Hagu, Taja Reson mo guini. You have no reason to be here. Port Sangani ho. In other words, tell me what's your reason for being here. Now, of course, it's always really enlightening to lay a heavy rap on someone in a language that you know that person doesn't understand. This is certainly a way to further communications. And we go on. She says, I support Black Lives Matter as a part of the colonialism, systemic racism. I came here to support these people. He's a white man, but have came here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people. When you see the video, you'll see that you could, if you wanted to do a meme about a non-confrontational person, just take a picture of Paul Zerzan in that setting. Absolutely non-confrontational whatsoever. He says he continues to fight people, individuals, and then she shows, just how tolerant she is by saying, "My goodness." And then she goes on and tells us all about herself. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. And then she winds up with her last remark to Paul Zerzan, Karaho Taimamatlo. Karaho can mean a lot of things. And I'm not going to get into that. It's not like saying, I really like you or you're a nice person. So So here we are, uniting people's generations in peace and justice. Hope Cristobal. And of course, you know, you heard her say some of the magic words, systemic racism. So she started out, I suspect she started out in the wrong place anyhow. But when cultural Marxism came along, she jumped in and swam around in it like she were a duck.
It's interesting that the Nobel Prize for Peace is not a part of the systemic racism of colonialism.
Absolutely.
Because it absolutely fits the bill.
It does. It really does. Well, anything that helps Hope can't be all bad. She certainly needs help. I think we're pretty much aware of that. Okay. So I guess I got Hope calling up, or maybe it's Natividad telling me how to get that video to the show on Saturday. No, it's another Joe. I'll just go with it here. What can you tell me, another Joe?
I'm sorry, apologies. Did you already have this public service notice that tonight around 1 or 1:30 is the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary? Is it, or?
Did I already announce it?
I'm not sure if I said that right.
No, I didn't already announce it. You can,
but
if you'd want to, and then you can tell us about Hope Cristobal.
So it's my understanding. I think the Archbishop, together with all the bishops, I'm not sure it was just more than the Catholic bishops for sure. I think it's at the cathedral tonight, 1:30 a.m. Also online. My understanding is they're consecrating Russia to Mary.
Mm-hmm. I've read about it.
So, and this is supposed to be something that was settled back in, years, decades past? And
no, what it was that Fatima, Lucia at Fatima said that if the Pope didn't consecrate Russia to the Holy Mother, that the world would devolve into chaos. And you know, people who follow this sort of thing said, well, yeah, like communism and all of the bad things that Russia turned into. So I guess that's where we are now, another Joe. So 1:30 at the cathedral, as you were 0130, right? 1:30 tomorrow morning?
So far as that's my understanding. And I'm thinking it's regarding former Senator Hope Cristobal. Maybe if she prayed the rosary, it might calm her heart, mind, and soul, and make her more receptive towards what was the word she used? Timamao?
Yeah. Monga Malefa nai indigenous Chamorro Guinea.
I see, Robert.
Zangenalalo Tajagwaha. So indigenous Chamorro e Palawan.
Alrighty, Uncle Bob. So that's the message. Everyone, including Hope Cristobal, please let's all pray the Rosary and consecrate Russia to the Holy Mother and Mary, Mother God, and world peace. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks for sharing with us today, another Joe. Okay, and then we've got a caller here that's probably not going to repeat what another Joe said. He'll probably be a little more original. Go ahead, Pete.
Alpha Day, Uncle Bob, and Real Joe. Hey, I got a story real quick about when I was getting ready to go to Iraq the first time. I was stationed in Germany, and we were all put in this huge warehouse on lockdown waiting for available aircraft to head out. And, I was in a warehouse with bunk beds, about 500 of us in the warehouse, and we couldn't go nowhere. We had to stay in there until the bird was ready for us to go. And I said, I've always wanted a really big room, but I just didn't want 500 roommates, But anyways, there was this huge bulletin board, and there was nothing on it except for this one half sheet of paper. And it said, "Dear soldier, God bless you on your journey, to the fight. Now, you may encounter some war protesters, and they're going to yell at you, and they're going to call you murderer, and then they're going to tell you how that violence is not the answer, and you must turn the other cheek. And when you encounter these people, be sincere, look at them, listen to them, and then punch them in the mouth. And then when they get mad, say, violence is not the answer. You must turn the other cheek.
And then punch them in the other cheek, right?
Right. So I just thought that was a funny story. It really happened. Like I said, that was the biggest room I've ever had, but I had 500 roommates, and it didn't smell that well.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for sharing that little anecdote with us, Pete. Is it, do you have it copyrighted, or can I steal it and use it myself sometime?
Oh, that's been going around. That's nothing new. I don't think it was new to the Iraq War, and I don't think it. I think it has been recirculated. But yeah, when someone tells you that war is not the answer, peace is the answer, violence is not the answer, punch them in the face and see what they say.
Okay, Pete. Thanks a lot for sharing that one with us.
All right.
So long.
I'm just glad he didn't recite the Tolstoy novel. It's a pretty long book.
Which one?
War and Peace.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought we were going to get. Yeah, right. Okay, next on the card, we got Carl versus GVB, but it's time to head for Chicago and the Wrigley Field.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago for the 7th inning stretch. That means there's only 2 more innings of Tall Tales left this week. Too bad we can't go into extra innings, Jose. And the next item on the card is Carl versus Guam Visitors Bureau. Now, as far... There you go, the good, bad, the bad, and the ugly. As far as Carl is concerned, back in 2018, when we were leading up to the election, we had 3 Carls that used to call in here. We had Carl, and then we had the Carl, which is former Governor Carl Gutierrez, and then to distinguish those 2 from the third one, we had our Carl. So when I'm talking about Carl versus GVB, although he is the most dangerous man in the room, I'm not talking about our Carl. I'm talking about the Carl, former Governor Carl Gutierrez. And Governor Carl Gutierrez drew both of his 45s and fired away. Guam Visitors Bureau President Carl Gutierrez on Thursday accused the agency's board of breaking the open government law by allegedly meeting in private and unethically voting for GVB initiatives and programs that benefit their businesses. breaking the open. And we take that pretty seriously here on Tall Tales. Here's a quote. You guys are ganging up to figure out how the outcome of the board meeting is going to be, Gutierrez said during the board's regular meeting. I'm fed up with it. If you want to get rid of me and Vice President Jerry Paris, you can make that motion and do it, Gutierrez said. But I'm not going to shirk my responsibility to allow the people of Guam's millions of tax dollars to be dictated by people that have special interests. If you own a hotel and vote for a hotel incentive, that's inherently conflicted. Gutierrez spoke for several minutes after board chairman Milton Morinaga started the board meeting by responding to, quote, unwarranted and unsubstantiated comments and accusations aimed at this board.
Was that on the agenda?
Good question. Morinaga cautioned that it could reflect badly on Guam and the island's tourism market. We must put aside any personal politics and work together, Morinaga said. Maybe we should put him up for the Nobel Peace Prize, huh? We are expecting the return of tourism from Korea just weeks away, and we must prepare and be ready for our visitors from Japan. Our top priority is to restore Guam's tourism industry, which employs tens of thousands of residents directly and indirectly and provides vital tax funding for our government. Although Morinaga didn't mention what had been said about the board or who said it, Gutierrez responded saying, "Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your admonition to the management and particularly aimed at me." So we're once again seeing a gauntlet thrown down here.
I wrote, if we saw this in the agenda, I would have been there. It sounds good.
Exactly, yeah. You know, he's new business, Morinaga versus Gutierrez, or Gutierrez versus Morinaga. I'd have come for sure. That's why that 36, 37 is so valuable, Jose. Gutierrez says, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Guam, not this board. As I've been here for almost 2 years now, I've witnessed blatant abuse of the open government law. Whoa. To ethical violations that I see all the time. We have records, and I have to take this out to the public that you cannot come in here as an airline owner or a hotel owner and vote on incentives that go to this hotel or that airline and not recuse yourself. Morinaga is managing director of PHR Can Micronesia, which is the holding company for 6 of Guam's largest resort hotels and a golf course. Gutierrez said board members blatantly meet in secret to determine the outcome of public board meetings. Well, I'd sure like to get a hold of his notes on that one, huh? You come in here and try to tell this management board where to put the money. Take it away from the community and give it to airline incentives. I cannot stand for that, Gutierrez said. He said most of the board members are inherently conflicted. If we're talking about incentives for airlines, recuse yourself or say you're not going to vote for it, Gutierrez said. I have not voted on any airline incentive, said board member Sam Shinohara, who is managing director for United Airlines. So here we go, Jose. It's not what Sam Shinohara did. It's what Sam Shinohara didn't do. You're getting a little bit defensive with respect to actions taken by this board. I'll have you know, a motion for specific airline incentive has never been brought forward to this board. That's what Sam Shinohara told him. Gutierrez said a 2019 GVB financial report shows United Airlines received almost 380,000 in incentives. You acceded to it. In essence, you're voting for it because you didn't say no, Gutierrez said. He's taking a page from my book. It's not what he did.
It's what you didn't do.
It's what he didn't do. The board did not take any action in response to Gutierrez's comment. They didn't take any action? That would have proved his point right there, wouldn't it? Every time now that we see a violation of what you people are doing, we're going to call it out publicly, Gutierrez said. Promising indicators. Skip that. And then we have an article from the Post, who's pretty much the same thing, but let me go through the Post here also. The gloves came off during the Guam Visitors Bureau 2-hour board meeting Thursday afternoon. Now, this is Heidi. I don't think Heidi is using the gloves came off in the respect of, you know, the old custom during knighthood days was if someone insulted you, you took off your gauntlet, which is a long glove, and you slapped the face of the person who insulted you, and you threw the gauntlet down in front of him. And if he picked up the gauntlet, that means he was ready for a duel. He was ready for a fight. But here, I think what Heidi is talking about, it's more like kid gloves, you know. Took off the kid gloves. We've been handling things pretty delicately. Well, we're taking the gloves off now, and we're going to tell it like it is. The gloves came off during Guam Visitors Bureau 2-hour board meeting Thursday afternoon with GVB President Carl Gutierrez accusing board members of colluding and ganging up to determine the outcome of each board meeting, particularly on allocating program funds. Gutierrez accused board members of conflict of interest by discussing outside of official meetings issues that would benefit the companies they represent. Board members said they were appointed and elected to serve on the GVB board specifically because of their involvement in the tourism industry, which, of course, is correct. Now, the Guam Visitors Bureau is a duck-billed platypus.
It's a quasi-something or the other.
It is, yeah. Now, you've probably... I have actually seen a duck-billed platypus. It's about yay long. You got to go to Australia to see them.
And they're poisonous. Is the GVB board poison? I don't know.
So a duck-billed platypus is a mammal, but it lays eggs. It's a mammal, but has a bill like a duck. It's got web feet like a frog, etc. So it's kind of like a Frankenstein. Like God had all these parts left over and said, "What am I going to do with this stuff? Well, I guess I'll make a platypus." And the GVB is kind of a duck-billed platypus. It's neither fish nor fowl. It's not a government agency. There was a case called, I think it was LaGuardia versus Government of Guam, that determined that it is not a government agency. I don't think it's even a government corporation, but it has many of the aspects of a government agency, and many of the laws that apply to government agencies apply to it. But because it's not a government agency, it can have ex officio members who are not officers of the government of Guam. So I think there are like 11 members appointed by the governor, confirmed by the legislature, and then 5 selected by various industries through their own mechanisms. And the idea is that the Visitors Bureau, which has access to the tourist attraction funds, is supposed to be very familiar with tourism on Guam and is supposed to use its funds, its power, and whatever to promote tourism on the island. So it's part of the design of the Visitors Bureau board to have hoteliers, airline types, whatever, those 5 people that are not sworn, not appointed by the governor. That's the design of it. But Carl's saying that if something comes up that benefits their own particular shop, they shouldn't vote for it. I think he's got a point. So Gutierrez accused board members of conflict of interest by discussing outside of official meetings issues that would benefit the companies they represent. Board members said they were appointed and elected to serve on the board specifically because of their involvement in the tourism industry. The actions of the board, they said, naturally were geared toward improving the visitor industry as a whole. GVB Board Chair Milton Morinaga, at the beginning of the meeting, said there have been a number of unwarranted and unsubstantiated comments and accusations aimed at this board during the past few days. Gutierrez has questioned the actions and credibility of those representing airlines and hotels on the board. Morinaga said the board welcomes independent reviews, scrutiny, or audit of the board. I repeat, we must and we will work together for the people of Guam. He said, adding that personnel matters and politics need to be set aside. Well, the board will remain steadfast in its judgment, Morinaga said. It is also tasked with holding GVB management fiscally and operationally accountable and on mission with available resources. It's kind of a hidden message there. He then said recent comments he's referring to, without being specific, do not deserve a response as they lack any merit. The negative rhetoric distracts from us from accomplishing our mission to prepare for the return of Guam's top two markets, Japan and Korea, Morinaga said. Gutierrez at the meeting thanked Morinaga for his admonition and statement that he said was particularly aimed at him. Quote, let me tell you, if you don't know what this board is made out of, I do. And I have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Guam, not this board. GVB management and board members have been, for several board meetings now, trying to focus limited resources on markets and activities that will bring back tourists immediately. When Morinaga tried to prevent Gutierrez from continuing, Gutierrez said the board chairman started it. You started it. Gutierrez went on to say that in the 2 years since he's been GVB president, he's seen blatant abuse of the open government law and ethical violations referring to board members. You cannot come in here as an airline owner or hotel owner and vote on incentives that go to this hotel or that airline and not recuse yourself. You come in here and try to tell this management where to put the money, take it away from this destination, take it away from that community, give it to airline incentives. I cannot stand for that, Gutierrez said. Skipping forward a little bit here. Gutierrez accused, quote, you people, meaning board members, of meeting in secret to determine the outcome of what's going to go on in a board meeting. That's pretty serious. They all get together and say, well, here's how we want it to come out. You make the motion, I'll second it, etc. Gutierrez named names, saying board member Ben Ferguson of Pacific Islands Club, which is owned by PHR, told him last week that he talked all morning with Shinohara about how to deal with the Korean market. Shinohara said it was about the free PCR testing the GVB is offering tourists before they return to their countries, and it was discussed during a meeting of the Recovery Task Force, which Shinohara chairs. Gutierrez responded, it doesn't matter. It's against the law for you to be communicating. It's interesting to see that the GVB and the president are so interested in the open government law when they break it every time they have a meeting. Gutierrez said he was saying all morning on the phone. He said, you've been talking all morning about it, and that's against the open government law. It seems to me that there's some kind of collusion here among you people that are in the industry, Gutierrez said. He went on to say, you guys are ganging up to figure out the outcome of the board meeting is going to be. I'm fed up with it. Another board member, Akihiro Tani of Fish Eye Marine Park, called for everyone to work as a team after seeing the confrontation during Thursday's meetings. GV board member George Chu, who works for a company that also owns hotels, raised concerns about allocating of money for Taiwan marketing when it brought only 40 tourists in the first quarter. So more money should proportionally be set for marketing to Korea and Japan. It's about time to head for Churchill Downs, Jose. And so I'm going to break here for a second. And I've got another Joe. I'll try to get him on before we leave before the end of the show. Be patient, another Joe.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla. So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch. I got just a couple more furlongs before I'll be crossing the finish line into no man's land. You know, when Jose and I walk out of the back door here at the studio, it's like we disappear. We are no longer the stars of the most important afternoon radio talk show in the Western Pacific.
We literally be walking into the sunset.
We do indeed. We're just like Verbal Kent in The Usual Suspects. We go from having all of this power like Kaiser Soze, and when it's all over, we just kind of stumble away into anonymity. But as almost miraculously at 1600 on Monday afternoon, we come back to life and do that thing that we enjoy more than anything else, which is work here on Tall Tales with our international radio listening audience of tailgaters. So I'm going to wrap up this GVB article here. George Chu, one of the members, said, if board members are accused of conflict of interest just for speaking about how to improve the tourist industry, then that defeats the purpose of having a GVB board. So very, very interesting, extremely interesting. I was listening this morning on Ray's show where someone was, a quote that someone had harvested from a board member saying, I don't know if we want Carl Gutierrez to be the president of GVB or not, because we won't be able to control Carl Gutierrez. Truer words were never spoken.
No kidding. Just a clarification, that last quote, he said just for speaking about tourism, but Gutierrez was talking about voting for things. There's a difference between voting for something and discussing something.
Exactly. Well, you know, a lot of folks on that board probably aren't listeners, aren't tailgaters, so they don't understand how important it is to precisely use language and say exactly what you mean. It's good to mean what you say, but you have to say what you mean, because there's always room for misunderstanding if you kind of get loose with your language and your talks. That's why you won't find me talking about normalcy or referring to the man in the next room as they, unless I'm making fun of it. Because that's how misunderstandings start, when people are, and that's exactly the plot with the cultural Marxism here. You know, they want you to be imprecise. They want to gaslight you into this idea that that you don't have to be binary, that you shouldn't have to identify the sex of the person in the other room. That's why you should call him they. It's not just a convenience. This is a form of brainwashing, and we need to fight it as hard as we can. So going back to this article here, it puts the governor in kind of a bind, doesn't it? The governor appointed some of those people, and these are heavy-duty dudes here. You know, these guys control a lot of campaign contributions, have a real important role in the economy, et cetera. And Carl Gutierrez has actually called them out, said, "You guys, I'm on to you. You got to stop doing this. I know that you violated the law over and over again," implicitly suggesting, like, maybe I'll share my files with somebody.
And not for the past 2 years, but the TAF, Tourism Attraction Fund, is not some small kitty. It is huge.
Yeah, it's big
money. It's in the millions.
It's big money. So what is the governor's response going to be here? Will she take Carl Gutierrez to the woodshed? I got a feeling it would be more like Carl Gutierrez taking the governor to the woodshed. Will she tell him, "Carl, calm it down a little bit"? Will some of the board members resign in protest? Will some of the board members burn their GVB shirts in protest? Going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because I don't think it's over. I think it's just getting started. I don't think it's over yet. Of course, Governor Gutierrez, frequent caller on Ray's show. He used to call here back during the election in 2018. He hasn't called here for quite some time. Of course, we'd like to have him call if he so desires. I would really like to have him share whatever information he has on open government law violations, because, you know, that is an extremely serious problem. And if you tolerate it, it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse, and it never leads to a good result. Okay, so much for that item on the card. I'm going to see what another Joe's got to say. Go ahead, another Joe.
Yeah, well, so regarding stateside, the Congress, do they have comparable laws which say that they cannot speak about certain issues or, you know, decide certain issues outside of the appropriate, sessions? I'm not familiar with, like Nancy Pelosi. She's not allowed to talk to other House members or Chuck Schumer in the Senate.
If only it were so. If Nancy Pelosi were not allowed to talk, it would be a much better world. No, they don't have this kind of open government law thing. In fact, from what I understand, much of the work of Congress is done outside of session. And if you ever watch floor debates, you'll see that the seats are all empty.
They've already said their piece outside of session.
Yeah, and they're going somewhere else and doing something else. So much of what takes place outside of session. The word log rolling has to be understood. Log rolling takes place in just about any legislative body that you can think of. And what it means is a quid pro quo type arrangement where members say, you know, I kind of like that bill of yours, the tax that adds a new tax to railroads. But, you know, I can't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about it or concentrating on it and studying it because I'm having a really hard time with my college fund bill. And the first guy says, you know, I'm familiar with that college fund bill. I kind of think I'd like to help you with that. I'd like to support you. Can we work together on that? Oh, yeah, sure. We could do that, man. Maybe we could work together on my railroad bill, too. What do you think? Yeah, good deal. Let's shake on it. A quid pro quo type arrangement. That's what log rolling means. And, of course, that occurs outside the hall, and it's not illegal so long as it's kept within the context that I described. If we're talking about exchanges of money or something like that, or privileges or something, then it can be a problem.
What about boards and board meetings? Because they make a lot of decisions in the board meeting, hence the agenda. Are they allowed to discuss it, like the two people over coffee, discuss an issue and then come back to the board with their...
So long as the people that do the discussion are not enough to be a quorum. So if it's a 7-member board, as many as 3 could get together for coffee and chat about it. But it's something that has to be watched very, very carefully. Hey, another Joe, did you borrow our sound effect there?
I'm sorry? Oh, you heard my dogs.
Yeah, who didn't do something there? When we go into that thing, it's not what the governor did, it's what the governor didn't do, and then the dog barks. It sounded like that was what you were doing. Gotta go, another Joe. The end of another beautiful week here. See you guys on Monday, and let's go, Brandon.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Stronger, sticking together. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That message from President Biden yesterday for NATO allies in their emergency summit meeting in Brussels.
The very thing that Putin has tried to do from the beginning, and I've been saying this since my days as Vice President of the United States, is to break up NATO. Break up NATO. He'd rather face 30 independent countries than 30 united countries.
The president also announced a new Russian sanctions. He'll leave Brussels in a few hours from now, headed for Poland. Ukraine's President Zelensky addressing the NATO meeting remotely yesterday, pleading for more military hardware, even as Ukrainian forces make more gains against their invaders.
It was victory at sea for Ukraine, with its forces claiming it destroyed a large Russian landing ship that had been used to bring in armored vehicles. It happened near the port city of Berdansk. And huge gains for Ukrainian forces outside the capital of Kyiv. Counteroffensive there, pushing Russian forces even further from the city.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt in Lviv, but elsewhere, Russian bombardments continue, including in the cities of Kharkiv and Mariupol. Ukraine has accused Russia of forcibly relocating hundreds of thousands of civilians to Russian territory to use as hostages to pressure Kyiv to give up. The Kremlin says those people have been evacuated of their own free will. Nebraska Republican Congressman Jeff Fortenberry convicted of lying to the FBI about a campaign contribution from a foreign billionaire. Representative Fortenberry says he was set up by the feds and prosecutors twisted his words. The National Weather Service says the winds in Tuesday night's tornado in New Orleans reached 160 miles an hour and carved an